No, no, you get out. You get out. You've already long since overstayed your welcome, and you don't even pay the rent. We open this one with Aoyuki arriving at her company's HQ, where she found a fallen over cardboard cutout. No, of course, it was the usual stand-in for the unknown mob characters, which, considering where they were, it was already pretty likely that she was a VTuber, but after this, it was pretty obvious who it was. Here's a hint, it wasn't Shiro refusing to put down the controller. Of course, it was Kaoru, and they actually did a clever bit of direction here by letting us see both of the VTubers' perspectives so that we could see that neither initially recognized the other as their online persona. It also kind of flushed down my theory that Aoyuki has dissociative disorder, unless everyone in the show is supposed to have it, but no, it was more of a stylistic choice, and I was wrong about something, so just another day ending and why. Anyway, they did eventually piece together who they were after seeing brief glimpses of their VTuber selves. In between all of this, Kaoru gave her backstory, in which it turned out that she tried to be a mangaka, but even breaking out was understandably too much for her. God help her if she had actually gotten full serialization. Unfortunately though, she also couldn't get regular work because in this very real global economy, they had no reason to hire someone in their 30s. As a result, she ended up developing a little PTSD over any sort of job hunting, which VTubing would still count as, and does still make me wonder how she got past the initial interviews, but whatever, this company seems to have all of their screws loosed if they hired this many weirdos. And regardless, Aoyuki empathized with her Kohai's all too real backstory, though less so with all of the baby stuff. Girl, does this seem like an act to you? Granted, Kaoru was at least self-aware that everyone thought she was off her rocking bed, which is way more than what can be said for most locales. And, wholesomely enough, she did want to drag anyone else down to her level, hence why she didn't do any collabs until this episode. Also, Kaoru, your baby roleplay stuff might be weird, but at least you don't have a stat fetish. Anyway, using one of their office's rigs, Aoyuki hosted a collab stream with her in the form of a prono interview. Hey, could someone give Ayano her script back? Regardless of all the blatant SAing, Kaoru named Aoyuki as her ultra mommy, which unlike with Hikari when she was on the offensive, the drunken VTuber was briefly taken aback by. Granted, I think most people would find shoujo manga Aoyuki creepy as all hell. She would of course also offer her maternal services, though while confirmed stan, Kaoru also had some sense to not totally deal with that level of crazy. I blame Kazuma for all of this. With that, they moved on to pulling out some random topics for them to discuss on their stream. First up was, what was their latest obsession? What a dork. Now if you excuse me, I got some cleaning to do. Meanwhile, Kaoru had taken to solo karaoke sessions where she sang children's songs. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if she invited anyone, they would have no show if that were the case. He said Danzen Futari wa pure in a really loud voice! And she also enjoyed eating steaks, mostly just to get her hands on the paper aprons that of course looked like bibs. But yeah, this led to talks where both VTubers switched between being the straight man and the stooge, which again is something I like to see, especially in this case, where it does show how even the baby roleplayer had some standards when dealing with Aoyuki. For their last topic, they ended up doing impersonations, and while Aoyuki seemed to go with some sort of esoteric scenario, her voice and general mannerisms sounded similar to something else entirely. For clarification, while she sounded like Shin-chan, she was actually imitating his friend Bo-chan, and in particular a viral video where someone imitated him drowning as though it were like the original Ben Drowned creepypasta. And hey, it's still a more natural crossover than whatever that thing with Precure was. I mean, at least here we can get away with the sex jokes. From there, Kaoru did an impression of an early version of her mommy, though I'm pretty sure this is just Ayano in her everyday life. And then they had a little tickle session that, through the power of pure debauchery, I think might have caused a universal collapse. Yeah, I think I really would have preferred if we had gone out with a whimper rather than this sort of a bang. All that aside, Aoyuki and Kaoru did genuinely close things out very wholesomely, not just with a hug more real than, again, a certain other show I could name, but also with Aoyuki recognizing what sort of position she held with the newbies of their company. The latter half, or really more like the last quarter of this episode, changed things up by having Aoyuki go back to interacting with her fellow 3rd gen live on VTubers, in this case Chami, who we really haven't seen in a while. To help her through some of her social anxiety, she invited her out to the Fujiyama Park that was likely based on the real-life Fuji-Q Highland. For this show, it was also probably the first time that we were getting a story unrelated to VTubing, and it was just going to be about these two going on a cute little date. They did all the usual fare, including getting motion sickness on the roller coaster, though surprisingly enough, not so much on the giant teacup. Granted, they ended up dealing with a much worse issue. Hey Kaoru, can we borrow one of yours? Still, potty accidents and Chami's normie allergies aside, the two do make for a genuinely cute pairing, and as I said back in the 3rd episode review, remain my personal favorite ship, as their personalities complement each other really well. Though, hilariously enough, while they could have ended the day with a romantic Ferris wheel ride, Aoyuki instead opted for the cage variant, which for those who haven't rode these things, not only did they have no seats so that passengers could sit down and look at each other, they also are often designed to slide around as the ride goes on. Yeah, have fun with that, Chami. Anyway, while their date itself didn't involve any VTubing, the two did later talk about it on a stream. And with that, the episode ended with Kaoru offering Chami the position of sub-mommy, which, considering how dominating Aoyuki was, that did sound like the most appropriate position for her. Though, and also, she should probably avoid playing Sugo no Hi. Appropriately enough, the ending theme this week went to Chami, who did a very upbeat beach song that kind of doesn't suit her actual personality, though considering it was titled I'm Not a Loner, the idea was likely that it represented her earnest attempts at being more social, so it's actually a fairly triumphant tune that was a legit banger for such a nice girl. And that's probably the best way to describe this episode. It was just nice, and also pretty wholesome, which is kind of unbelievable considering who the first segment was about. Then again, I think the point of this episode was to help humanize Kaoru beyond the caricature she has been since her debut 2 episodes ago. It's actually a pretty good twist that she's one of the more down-to-earth VTubers with one of the most depressingly real backstories. I think what I like about the characters of this show is that while they are legit kind of deviants, they do recognize the concept of boundaries. In the case of this episode, while Kaoru was definitely into her role-playing, she did also acknowledge how it's not exactly socially acceptable for a 30-something-year-old to wear diapers if they don't have medical conditions, and thus she did actively keep things to herself and her streams where she could make an honest living by being a clown. That, combined with her very relatable backstory, did make her one of the most real characters of the show. The mommy stuff aside, her personality did actually complement Aoyuki's fairly well, and they were legit wholesome at times, as what she clearly wanted was more of a mentor and friend to confide with rather than just a mother. Of the 4th gen VTubers, I still think Alice is my personal favorite based on pure entertainment value, but Kaoru is a definite second favorite now. Meanwhile, the latter segment was a much simpler, yet also cute little adventure featuring my personal OTS. It was nice to see Chami try to become legit more sociable, even if it was just with one person. Yeah, there wasn't much to this one, but I see it more as the cherry on top of an already good Sunday of an episode. Thus overall, while liking some of the insane laughs of previous outings, this episode made up for it with some good character development for Kaoru, and just a general good vibe to it. While I wouldn't exactly call a drunkard like Aoyuki good mother material, she certainly has a way around her unique set of kohai.
それはクビということですか？お役に立てずすいませんでした。仕事以上の執着はないのか?
Dude, we just watched a show about a chick who became a baby streamer after she couldn't get a job. Just be glad you got the same one.
どちらかを選ぶおさんと火花ちゃん。
Some choice.
これは愛。
愛。
愛。
Okay, play the clip.
なぜそこで愛？
It just will never go away.
うちの火花は子供の頃から魔法少女に憧れている。
That explains a lot. Yeah, not too surprisingly, Hibana remains the absolute best character in the show. Friend or enemy, she treats everyone exactly the same, so you can't say she's in any way an unjust magical girl. Okay, but seriously, it makes her one of the funniest parodies of the genre by inverting all of the usual healing and soothing methods of magical girls into pure violence. Likewise, I love how the familiars are actually more traditional Bishi anime boys that makes their usual appearances and bickering all the more surreal and hilarious. Interestingly, this is also kind of an inversion of that VTuber Legend episode we just reviewed, in that this was a little lighter on the plot and character development and a lot more focus was put on the comedy. Not complaining, mind you, as you may as well go all in on one or the other rather than half-assing everything, and it also allowed the show to establish some fun new dynamics, like obviously Byakuya and Hibana's very loving relationship, and the familiars turning into helicopter parents. Surprisingly, it even kind of made me interested in seeing more of the asshole cat just so that he could butt heads with the bird. And overall, this is just a pure laugh riot from a shorter, yet still very entertaining little magical girl anime. Byakuya might not have made facial muscles to make herself laugh, but her frenemy can certainly do most of the work for all of us. Thank you for watching. As always, maybe check out some of our other videos on this channel. In October, we'll probably release some longer form videos in relation to the month, with perhaps a similar theme as what we did last year. Look forward to it. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and oh great, he's drowning again. Hold on, let me just go pull the plug.